This California attorney wants to sue the Trump administration and prosecute ICE, but you've likely never heard of her before. Today, I'm kicking off my brand new series on California politics, where I'm talking to multiple different primary candidates who are running for things like governor, mayor, city council, Congress, city attorney, and much more. Before we get into today's episode, guys, I just want to give you a quick note. I am not personally endorsing any candidate in the primary race. I am simply here to ask the important questions that you and all of us want to know so that when you go to the ballot box, you are making the most informed decision for you. Use your critical thinking skills, make sure that you are doing your own research, and then vote in a way that fits your policy ideals the best. Now let's go ahead and get into today's episode. Marissa Roy is running for LA City Attorney. A progressive, Marissa was just endorsed by Bernie Sanders, and she says she is running to transform the Los Angeles City Attorney's office into the largest public interest law firm in the city. So I'm really glad that you're here because we've been wanting to talk for a bit.
I know.
And it's really exciting. So tell everybody who either may not know a lot about LA politics or what the position that you're running is for. Give us like the quick rundown.
Okay, so city attorney, probably a position most people haven't heard of.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're thinking the district attorney, so kind of like the law and order prosecutor.
Yeah.
It's not that. It's actually way, way more interesting and way more powerful. So the city attorney has the power to sue the Trump administration and has the power to sue any corporation for anything unlawful, unfair, or deceptive. Mm-hmm. So that means the corporation stealing wages, the bad landlords that are evicting people and denying repairs. It means the tech companies that are abusing consumers. It means Palantir and private prisons that are enabling the Trump administration right now.
Yeah.
It's all of the potential to do this, but we are not using it.
Right.
And that's because right now, we have a corporate city attorney beholden to corporate donors who isn't going after the Trump administration. And I am kind of the complete opposite. I've spent my entire career in government holding corporations accountable and suing Trump.
Nice. We love that.
Yeah, it's been so much fun. I've loved being a lawyer.
Flex.
Yeah.
And I know you told me a little bit about how you're part of suing Meta and that whole process. So you clearly have a lot of experience with this. And so tell us a little bit more about why city attorney is so specifically important in this primary election.
Yeah.
And why this moment feels like really important.
I mean, first of all, it's going to end this primary election. So in LA, if anyone gets over 50%, it means that the election's over. It won't even go to November. And so there are really only two main candidates. Yeah. It's me and the corporate incumbent. But why this is so important at this moment is because right now, the Trump administration has been singling out and attacking Los Angeles. Yeah. And our legal system is one of the best ways we can fight back. Mm-hmm. You know, pretty much everything Trump does is unconstitutional or unlawful. Yeah. You just have to sue. Mm-hmm. And every single time you file a lawsuit, you get the policy invalidated, or even just a delay, you prevent it from going into effect. And we've seen people out in the streets fighting the Trump administration, putting their own lives on the line, and our city attorney hasn't shown up in court to match that. Right. The state of California has sued over 50 times. Mm-hmm. They've won in 75% of their cases. It's protected $168 billion in funding for our education, healthcare, research. That's what the Attorney General has done. Mm-hmm. And actually, when Trump sent the National Guard into Los Angeles, it was the Attorney General that sued and got the National Guard out, not our city attorney. Our city attorney didn't file a single lawsuit. Thank goodness we had the state come in, but we shouldn't have to rely on the state. We should have a city attorney who doesn't need any prompting to get into court against Trump. Mm-hmm.
And we all know that LA specifically has a sanctuary city policy, so this is something that should actually be enforced. Right. And, Heidi has refused to actually enforce it. But let's talk about that really quick, because I have personal experience with Heidi's lack of effort, if we will, during the occupation of LA, when the National Guard was sent out and eventually the military got sent. I was on the front lines every day covering the whole process. LAPD and the Sheriff's Department I also think CHP was probably involved in there too, attacked the press, attacked protesters. We all got shot at with rubber bullets. I saw a woman get trampled by a horse, literally like 5 feet away from me. I got tear gassed twice, and many people got pepper sprayed. I know one of my followers who is probably going to be really excited to hear from you. He was shot in the face with a rubber bullet and it shattered his jaw.
Oh, God.
So he was not able to speak for literally 2 months. So this is a really important topic for a lot of people who live here, millions of people who have been showing up in the streets, being on the front lines, not just being, armchair activists.
Right.
So when it comes to your stance on this, how would you have handled that situation back then, and if it happens again?
It's just so horrifying to hear about all of these. And I hate, by the way, when LAPD calls them non-lethal, because they are incredibly destructive. Like shattering someone's jaw, like especially the close range they're shooting in, it's like these are causing near lethal force.
Right.
I think me and other civil rights lawyers call them less lethals. We refuse to call them non-lethals. Here's the thing, like this really sadly is not new. LAPD has been sued about the use of force against protesters and journalists so many times. The city was sued in 2000 and lost, was sued in 2007 and lost, was sued in 2020 during the Black Lives Matter protests, and there was a court order basically restricting LAPD from using force during protests for crowd control. And it's interesting, at the time, I actually was setting up 40 lawyers to do pro bono legal defense for protesters. So that's what I was doing at that time.
So you've been about this.
I've been about this for a while. I've been out in the streets, but then also kind of organizing the lawyers as well.
Right.
And then in 2022, the California State Legislature passed a law that restricts and puts, boundaries on the use of less lethals for protests. Right. Every single time we've been sued, the city attorney should be implementing protocol to get LAPD in line and should be making sure that there's discipline that's actually enforced.
Yeah.
But that hasn't been happening. That's all called compliance.
Right.
Because honestly, you don't want to have to keep getting sued over the same thing again and again and again.
Right.
It not only means people are getting hurt, but it also means that's taxpayer resources that are just going out the window.
Right.
And it's entirely preventable if the city attorney is invested in making sure LAPD follows the law. And so we've been on notice for a long time.
Yeah.
And honestly, as city attorney, what I would have been doing is working on compliance, getting LAPD in line to follow the law, and again, making sure there's discipline if anyone is not following the law or not following these protocols, because at the end of the day, if you're law enforcement, you should be following the law to the highest letter.
Right.
No excuses. And so after that, I remember following the lawsuit that LA Press Club filed. And that injunction came down in September last year. And
I was a part of that injunction.
That was amazing. Yeah. And I think it was incredible also to kind of see, I'm glad that the court treated it with so much urgency.
Yeah.
So it was filed in July, you got the injunction in September. The day before the No Kings protests in October, the city attorney tried to lift the injunction.
Right.
And what's really important to understand is she made a bunch of legalese excuses, which is her kind of strategy, is she likes to obscure things in legalese to kind of confuse people and make it sound like what she's doing is right. So she invented all of these reasons as to why there were faults in the court order. But if you had questions about the court order, if you felt like it was ambiguous, it needed to be defined, you can do a motion to modify the court order or a motion to clarify the court order. She's not a litigator. She has no idea how to use any of those tools. But by motioning to lift the court order, what she essentially was doing was showing her cards, that she just wanted a free pass for LAPD to be able to attack journalists.
Yeah, without any sort of accountability or anything like that. Yeah, free pass.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's like that puts so many people's lives at risk. It doesn't make us any safer.
Right.
And then just opens us up to more lawsuits. So whatever way you want to look at it, it's exposing the city and you're not being a good lawyer to the city. You're also not being a good lawyer to the people.
Right. And so what Mayor Bass and Heidi ended up doing was that, right? Like they were not holding LAPD accountable, the Sheriff's Department accountable. How would you handle that situation if it were to happen again? Because it's very likely that we are going to have another situation. He's already, kind of screwed up with Minneapolis. He has sent the National Guard without the consent of governors and mayors. So it's very possible that even if we continue to have a Democratic mayor and governor, that they're more than likely going to do the same thing that they did last summer. So in your opinion, what is going to be the best course of action if it does happen again?
Well, I think the other thing too is the Olympics. I do think Trump is going to use the Olympics as ground zero and as his excuse. So here's what we need to be doing as city attorney. We need to make sure we're suing the Trump administration immediately. It, again, was wonderful that we had AG Bonta in there, but it's time for the LA City Attorney to file that lawsuit. We also need to prosecute ICE agents.
Yes.
The LA City Attorney and the LA District Attorney have not filed a single prosecution. And I think of Keith Porter, the man who was killed in Northridge. The Attorney General released an opinion saying local prosecutors can file charges against ICE. There's not blanket immunity for ICE to violate the law just because they have a badge.
Right.
So we need to be enforcing these laws. There's a no mask law, no mask law enforcement law that was just passed by the California State Legislature. We need to make sure we're enforcing it. So I would be prosecuting ICE agents. I would be suing the Trump administration. And then the third thing I'd be doing is suing the companies that are basically giving the technology that empowers ICE. So suing Palantir, suing Core Civic and Geo Group, which run the private detention centers where basically our kidnapped neighbors are being held in the most inhumane conditions. And that's kind of my three-pronged approach of how we would use the court system to fight off the Trump administration.
Now, a lot of people might say that that is great in theory, but it takes a really long time to get literally anything either passed or go through the courts or anything like that. And a lot of people are cynical, quite honestly, because we have seen how Trump has gotten sued multiple times, and for whatever reason, the courts just kind of continue letting him get away with things. So is there anything that, you can kind of give us as almost inspiration or hope that, if you got the position, if you won the primary, that you would enact immediately to ensure that we continue to have protections?
Yeah, I think I definitely understand people's skepticism, of course, especially with the Supreme Court and the recent orders.
Right.
The sad thing about the news is we often only hear the bad things. The Supreme Court can only take 80 cases a year.
Yeah.
We've filed, we being nonprofits, state and local governments, have filed over 600 lawsuits against the Trump administration, and actually the vast majority of them have been successful. When you think of the California Department of Justice, I think I mentioned had filed over 50 lawsuits, 75% have been successful. It's literally stopped laws from going into effect. It's protected $168 billion in funding. And it did eventually get the National Guard out of Los Angeles, which now means there's precedent that we can use next time, and we won't have to relitigate those issues. We can make litigation go faster. The first time I actually sued Trump was in law school. Crazy, right? I was working with San Francisco, and we sued 10 days after the first inauguration in January 2017.
Wow.
And he was trying to pull all federal funding from sanctuary cities.
Wow.
And we got the preliminary injunction in April, right before I graduated. So 3 months, which I know might seem like a lifetime, but we were speeding along the litigation. And honestly, some of my colleagues, I remember with the travel ban, were able to get temporary restraining orders within a week or two. So we can speed it up. And that's also the level of urgency we take of I'm not going to wait for the entire process to play out. I'm going to be immediately seeking a temporary restraining order and a preliminary injunction. So we're getting it litigated as quickly as possible.
Okay.
The thing is, I have done this before. I've been part of over a dozen legal actions against the Trump administration. So unlike the incumbent who, she's not a litigator, so she doesn't even go to court. I have not only spent my entire career as a government litigator, but very specifically in this niche of suing Trump, which is a totally different type of litigation. You set everything on the speed track. It's a little bit, we call it rocket docket. So that is exactly the type and the way that I sue when I sue the Trump administration. So when I say we'd be suing Trump day one, we would also be doing it in the quickest way possible. And when we'd be prosecuting rogue ICE agents, again, we would be doing that and making sure that they are held accountable immediately and that we're slowing them down. When I talk about suing Palantir and private prison companies, we would be drowning them in litigation from day one and drowning them in subpoenas and discovery requests and everything that would just make it so much more difficult for them to operate. And that's the point.
Yeah, I think the main goal that I feel like I hear people talking about is if we can't stop them or prevent them from doing a lot of the things that they're doing, which we should be, let's at least slow them down so that the community organizers have time to prepare. My last question for you is, there's a lot of talk about denaturalization, and LA obviously has a large immigrant community, documented and not documented. Is there anything that your position would be able to do in terms of protecting against denaturalization efforts?
Yeah, I mean, this one is personal. My mom is an immigrant from India and naturalized when I was in elementary school. And actually, like, one of the things she has been most afraid of is denaturalization, especially like when you think she has a daughter who already has sued the Trump administration as many times as I have. So it's something that my family has been thinking about a lot. The thing is, the only way we would stop that is through a lawsuit. You know, we see when Trump issued the birthright citizenship ban, it was a lawsuit that has stopped it from going into effect. It was a lawsuit actually filed by the city of San Francisco and the California Attorney General's office that the city attorney of LA stayed out of. So lawsuits actually are the way that we would stop that. And also the city attorney's office can do so much to help people get a pathway to citizenship, to help people protect information so that people can apply for what's called a T and a U visa if they're victims of crime. There's so much more that the city attorney's office can be doing in terms of providing legal information to make things more accessible, even if we can't give direct legal advice. So our city attorney needs to step up in this moment and act more like a people's attorney, be somewhere where people can know that there's an attorney that has their back, that will be fighting for them. And so with denaturalization, absolutely, like if the Trump administration even tries it, we would be filing a lawsuit immediately. And again, this one's personal, so my skin's in the game, and I would definitely be at the forefront of that.
Yeah. Well, Marissa Roy, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.